Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Good evening. I don't have a ton of time here, but I wanted to at least sort of touch on a whole bunch of things that Elon Musk, Zach Kirkhorn, and other people talked about during the Tesla earnings phone call. I'm not going to really focus on the financial aspects, number one, because that's not my area of expertise, but number two, because I figure everybody else on the internet is going to be posting videos about the financial aspects. I want to talk about some other things. I want to start off with number one. Elon Musk said this. He said full self-driving or autopilot or robo-taxis or whatever are going to be a nutty profit driver. His quote, nutty, quote unquote, profit driver. He said that it could be the single biggest value add to any product ever. In other words, the car value, like going from 45,000, 50,000, whatever the car costs, that the additional value placed on the car could be the largest incremental value ever done, I guess, on a product that was already released. So anyway, so that's a really interesting way of thinking about it, that he's basically saying, like, even if you're paying $10,000 or $12,000 for full self-driving right now, when full self-driving and robo-taxis and all of this stuff becomes available, that the value add is going to be so huge that it's basically going to, first of all, it's going to be a gigantic profit driver for Tesla, but second of all, for anybody who owns a car and is using it, they could make a significant amount of money. So he's thinking, I'm sure, more for Tesla, but also for people who are owners. If robo-taxis are ever allowed, it's going to make a massive difference to people who want to rent out their cars. So anyway, rather interesting aspect about that. One thing that's also really interesting is that he said that they're looking at the Teslabot as potentially a much bigger profit center than vehicles in the future. That makes really good sense. The Teslabot has a much wider range of application, right? Vehicles are only transportation, and currently, I guess they'll have the semi-truck, but currently they're only consumer level transportation, whereas something like Optimus or a Teslabot is labor. So it can take over jobs. He way down later on talked about how the Teslabots will probably be I was thinking about Steve Jobs' line, I think, which is, we eat our own dog food. Basically, he said they'll start in the factories moving things around from place to place. That's what their projected idea is. And they seem really, Elon Musk in particular seems super committed to the Teslabot and doing a lot of engineering work and getting it up and running, which is really interesting. On the sad side of things, no new products for 2022, and I'll explain a little bit more about that down below. But number one, no Cybertruck. Number two, no Semi. Number three, no Roadster. Number four, no Optimus in 2022. All of them except Optimus are likely to come about in 2023, and they are going to be doing a lot of engineering work on all of these. It seems a little odd since Pepsi, I believe, already has some semi-trucks, but I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. Anyway, they're not gonna like create these new products until they can build the new models without reducing the ability to manufacture cars right now. So that's the critical aspect. Right now, what they have is a chip shortage. And the chip shortage, he keeps saying over and over again, more than batteries, which is really fascinating. The chip shortage is the limiting factor. And so essentially, in order to build a new car, they have to not build other cars. And right now, they're much more efficient at building cars they already know how to build than to try to roll out new cars. So basically, they're just putting a blanket, no new cars in 2022, no new models. Obviously, they will be producing new cars. So that's a darn shame. But anyway, so that's what it is. Most important, again, Optimus is the most important thing for them long term. It's more important than vehicles over time because it's labor. So that's really amazing. Here's another interesting little fact. I don't believe it was discussed in the earnings call, but it was in the report that was filed. They now have 60,000 beta testers out there. That's a holy crap kind of thing. That is a lot of data. They also, in terms of 4680 battery cells, they are more chip limited than they are battery limited right now, which is crazy. And 4680 battery cells are being made in Cato Road and built into cars in Texas. And they're expecting to deliver those cars with 4680 battery cells in them to customers at the end of this quarter, it looks like, from Texas. So that's really cool for anybody who's got, I think the performance models are the first ones coming out, so that's likely to be the one. And Austin has also started 4680 battery production as well, which is super interesting. And there's a potential that they might be shifting their focus mostly to iron-based battery cells. So that's interesting from a lot of reasons. We may have to do a whole episode about that one because that's a really interesting little revelation. But another thing about this is that even though chip shortage is the primary limiting factor right now, Elon says that over time, of course, batteries will return to being the limiting factor, and that's when the 4680 battery cells, which will have ramped up by, say 2023 or so, when the chip shortage kind of diminishes, that's when those 4680 battery cells and their ability to really crank them out is going to be a huge, huge thing. So, as he said, it will be the fast production of them and the quality of them, and hopefully the higher energy density. All of that stuff will factor into the fact that they will be well in advance of other car companies because they will be able to make these cells very rapidly. Also, no new $25,000 car is in the works, like at all right now. He says it's too much. Again, same thing, chip shortage, batteries supply constrained, can't make enough cars right now. No sense in flooding the market with cars that are more affordable when they're selling every single car they can make right now. So the interesting thing though, the twist on all of this, is he said that basically what they're looking for is making cars autonomous so that it makes no sense to build a $25,000 car. And I've actually talked about that previously. I've been like, maybe they never will make a $25,000 car. They never officially announced it. They just had a future roadmap sort of thing. But if cars become autonomous, who cares what the car costs? Because you're not buying the car anymore as a customer. Most customers won't buy the car. And Elon is saying, he said in this quote, again, that transport costs are going to drop by a factor of 4 or 5. So currently it's about, let's just call it 80 cents a mile in the United States to drive a car on average. That just makes it easy to divide by 4. It's actually 72 if I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, if you knock that down by 4, that's 20 cents a mile. So, if you can think about the fact that the car could be driving, you could be being transported someplace for 20 cents a mile as opposed to 75 or 80 cents a mile, that is a huge savings. And why is anybody going to own a car? Because cars are a pain in the butt to own. So that's what he's talking about. The $25,000 car may never exist, because what they might do is just keep rolling out Model 3s and Model Ys, and people just rent them. The car comes and picks them up, they go to work, car leaves, they don't have to worry about parking, they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So that's what the future that Elon Musk sees is coming about. And again, that's why huge profit driver, because Tesla will be in the driver's seat with that. Okay, just touching on finances a teeny little bit. Operating income more than tripled last year, which is impressive. It's in the mid-teens. The income level is in the mid-teens and trending up. And they're not getting very many regulatory credits anymore, which is funny as hell, because that means that one of the Tesla Q stories about how they're only making money on regulatory credits is going away, and they're still profitable. Also, their gross margins were up to 29.2% in Q4, which is ridiculous. They do, however, have higher logistics costs, as is unsurprising with the chip shortage and all. And Elon Musk and Zach Kirkhorn, and both of them thanked the suppliers. They said the suppliers have been amazing, so I'll thank you to the suppliers too. Good job, folks, for getting them the parts that they need. In 2022, they're expecting much more than 50% growth. And they said they can do this only with Fremont and Shanghai. They don't need Berlin and Austin to make this above 50% growth happen. So holy crap. I've been banking it on the fact that they're opening up new factories. But in a way, they said that because of the chip shortage and everything, the Austin and Berlin ramps are going to be slower than expected. So that will be an interesting factor, because basically they just don't have enough chips already, right? They're constrained. So if they have 2 new factories, those factories are going to be kind of sitting there waiting for the chips, and they're going to be stealing them from Fremont and Shanghai. So they can't really ramp things until this chip shortage resolves itself, hopefully within about 12 months or so. So anyway, the ramps and the growth might be a bit slower than people expect. So keep in touch with that if you're a Tesla investor for 2022. But anyway, the good part is they said everything is set up for 2023. When they get to 2023 and after, and it becomes battery constrained again, then they're really going to be, rolling, because I'll have new 4680 battery production plants that'll be cranking out batteries at that point. Again, full self-driving is going to be a huge profit center. A couple more interesting tidbits from the question section. Number 1, in the future, HVAC for homes. They are super interested in this. I mean, basically they were interested and they're going like, oh yeah, we're probably going to do this. I'm like, they've got a whole bunch of these things sitting, in a skunk works. Somebody's already made this happen. They were like, look, it's super easy compared with a car, which is really, really small and really, really energy constrained because of the batteries. So they're talking about something attractive and small as opposed to the giant heat pumps that people have, making like a little thing, I guess, like this size, and integrating it with the house and making it smart so that it follows your cell phone around and it knows when you're coming home, when you're leaving. I assume other people in the family too. As Zach Kirkhorn said in the actual call, he said, the thing won't turn the air conditioning on or the heat on when your cat moves. So it'll be smarter than the current thermostats that are out there. They also said they have a lot of fish that are frying right now. So it seems like they're all sort of overwhelmed. We have all of these ideas. And here was a really amazing part. They're like, hey, does somebody else want to do the HVAC system, the heat pump, the HVAC system? Because that would be awesome if you guys could take that off our plate. So it's like they have so much stuff going on and so many ideas that they can't even get to the part where they can do these other adventurous projects because they're working so hard on everything else. So that's cool. If anybody wants to do that, that would be awesome. I would be very interested in purchasing your product from you. A more efficient heat pump that costs less and looks more attractive and operates better, that would be really awesome. So anyway, they'll get to it. If somebody else gets to it first, apparently they'll be happy if they do that. Perpetual license for full self-driving. Somebody asked about that. Elon said, very unlikely. They're much more focused on reducing the cost to the consumer. So again, the robo-taxi is the future. They're really looking at having a fleet of cars that goes out and drives around and people don't own cars anymore. I think that's what Elon Musk's future, and it's frankly a better idea. If you utilize the car 60 or 70+% of the time as opposed to 5% of the time or something, then each car is being utilized better, and that makes a greener future. No, because it costs carbon and it costs energy, carbon, things to make a new car. And it also costs that to drive it around because you're charging it up and everything. So the more efficiently you can do this, the better. So anyway, robotaxi is the future. Elon Musk said he personally, he wasn't making a prediction as a CEO, but just him personally said that full self-driving would be significantly better than human driving by the end of 2022. So he is on the clock. That's what I say too. So both of us are on the clock. December of 2022. We will see how it goes. Another question, is Dojo necessary for full self-driving? Number one, on track to be able to do something useful by summer of 2022. The big question, according to Elon Musk, is when will it be more competitive than the current GPU cluster that they have that they're constantly improving? He says they're thinking it'll be better than the GPU by next year. I guess that means the beginning of 2023 or so. It's definitely not necessary for full self-driving, as obviously we know, since we're driving in cars that are doing that are based on the GPU cluster training. The big thing he says is it's a cost optimizer for vast data. In other words, it trains faster, it makes progress faster, and parallelizing, which is the way that all the GPU clusters work, in other words, spreading it out, calculations across all these giant things, is not always the best way to do it because it does get bottlenecks in it. So anyway, he also said that they would be very happy to rent this out to other people who are doing research on, not full self-driving, but on neural networks and things. So I hope they have education discounts because I definitely want to rent time on their server. So yeah, anyway, much more optimized than a GPU for neural network training. Think of Dojo as an ASIC. So and particularly, it sounds like it's particularly video neural network training that it's optimized for. So that's interesting too, although I always feel like data is data, so it should work pretty well for everything. One thing that Elon Musk said that was interesting was he's not sure if it's going to succeed. And I found that really interesting. That was a little kind of note of caution. Obviously, Dojo is very experimental. He asked people to come and help work on it. So there may be trouble in paradise. That was a little bit of an interesting thing out there. So Dojo, great. Dojo, awesome. But possibly Dojo might not work. So anyway, let's see. So we already talked about the Teslabot insurance rollout. This is interesting. They really got into it about California rules because they're not allowed to use the metrics, the actual data that they get from drivers to set California insurance rates, which I found really interesting. But Elon Musk, they were really all about Texas because they've had it there for about 4 months. They said that the feedback loop is great. So basically the same thing as when I was trying to qualify to be a beta tester, I had to have a safety score, same exact thing for the insurance, and it gives you feedback. It's like, that was a bad drive. Your insurance rates are going to go up because of that. So you should drive safer. So he said that it's having a really, really obvious effect on the quality of driving. The uptake rates are encouraging. I don't know what that means. Of course, they didn't give an exact number or anything. But he said it's encouraging safer driving, and they're seeing it very much in Texas, which has had it the longest besides California. Also, interestingly enough, they are expecting to scale it across the US to ensure 80% of Tesla owners by the end of the year. So there is uncertainty due to regulation. That doesn't mean 80% of the states, that means 80% of Tesla owners. So they'll probably go to, populous states, which is good for Georgia, because I know Georgia has a ton of Tesla drivers, Florida. So anyway, hopefully we'll get it soon. That would be awesome. And then they're going to go to Europe. They're possibly by the end of the year, they're going to start rolling out Tesla insurance in Europe. So that would be super, super cool. Another person asked about max capacity and new factories. And Elon Musk said it's difficult so the max capacity of individual factories, he said it's difficult to say what that is because you can always squeeze more, out of any individual factory. But at some point it becomes not beneficial because if you're building all of your cars for the entire world in one place, you have to ship them everywhere. So he's like, what they want is to distribute factories around the world, make logistics easier, make it easier to get things to customers on the far end. And so that's, more or less what they're thinking about. They can squeeze more out of Shanghai and Fremont, but they want to start geographically diversifying to make logistics costs better. They are not announcing new factories, but they will be looking into it during the years in terms of where. So I would think any city that really wants a Tesla factory better start, better start contacting Elon Musk immediately. And finally, Cybertruck production problems. The person asked what they will be. Elon Musk said that batteries will not be the limiting factor, which is interesting, which means they're really thinking those 4680s are cranking out well at this point. The new technical production problems are going to be the limiting factor. And also the other thing, so that means all the new stuff that they're putting in order to manufacture that. And that ties into affordability. So basically he's saying what they want is a really cool product, but one that's affordable. So he said, they want the affordability with the awesome tech. They expect to produce somewhere around 250,000 vehicles a year, which is actually less than I expected. I thought they would try for more like 500,000 Cybertrucks a year, but it's going to take time to be able to make that many. So 2023, it should start, maybe 2023 and a half. So we could be looking at easily 18 months before the Cybertruck is being delivered to customers, which is, makes me sad, but we'll be patient. We got no other choice. All right, so there you go. I talked super fast. Hopefully this was, informative and everything. Hopefully it helped you to understand what you heard, or if you didn't want to listen to the earnings call and you wanted to see somebody talk like me, there you go. You can watch me talk instead of listening to them and seeing a Tesla logo. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please do like the video so other people can find it, and consider subscribing for more of this. A big giant thank you to my patrons on Patreon. And, for everything else, you look in the description, merch store, all of that stuff. You know all the drill. Anyway, I will see you tomorrow or the next one. Bye-bye.